Vermont in the United States and around the world. I'm Benjy Renton reporting live here from Middlebury, Vermont. It is just after 11 p.m. on the East Coast here. Polls have currently closed in California, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, and we are excited to get to some of the national results as well as a specific focus on our Vermont statewide results for governor and lieutenant governor. But before that, I'm thrilled to be joined by another guest on this hour's broadcast of the show. I'm thrilled to be joined by Keith Shadnover. He is running for re-election. He is currently actually a student at Middlebury, but he's also running as an elected official in Dukes County, Massachusetts, and he is the Dukes County Commissioner. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Benji. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so let's start off and kind of just saying, what does this night mean to you, and what are you how are you feeling going into this night?
Well, this night means a lot to me because I'm on the ballot. But I had someone ask me today, if you could pick one winner, you or Biden, who would it be? And I laughed at them and I said, Joe Biden, 150%. I have been reelected, so I appreciate that Dukes County voters have said that I can have another 2 years as their county commissioner, but still on pins and needles about the national race, and hopefully the former vice president will pull it out here at the end. But it means a lot that a 20-year-old has won on the island in Dukes County, and that voters have put faith in me to serve for them another 2 years.
Congratulations on your re-election. I know a lot of people must ask, what's it like being a student, especially in another state, and also serving an elected office back home?
It's a little strange. It's a lot of Zoom. It's kind of funny because when everyone had to transition to Zoom, it was kind of funny because I said, I've been on Zoom for, I've been on Zoom for years. And so Zoom, I was already an expert in Zoom before the pandemic, but it's strange. A lot of phone calls, a lot of explaining how you can do that. I used to go home for some meetings, which unfortunately I can't do anymore. I don't get to visit home as often as I'd like to, but it's definitely an experience. And sometimes there are nights you love it. Sometimes there are nights you don't. Sometimes you want to punch a hole in the wall. And sometimes you want to, skip and dance down the hallway. Just depends on the day. But I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I love serving.
That's awesome. I assume that this is your first vote in a presidential election. Is that right?
You would be correct. Yeah. So I voted for the first time in 2018, and this is my first time voting in a presidential election.
Cool. And what do you think your vote means this year, and why did you choose to vote this year?
I chose to vote this year for the presidential race because, as Joe Biden says, we're in a fight for the soul of the nation. Are we going to descend into a further type of politics where it's easier to malign others than to try to work with people? Are we going to take those democratic institutions, a free press and free elections, and are we going to throw those further down and make those even less consequential and fact-based? And it's about having a president whom I can disagree with, and I would frequently disagree if Joe Biden does win, but someone with whom I think I could have a conversation with and not need to take a shower right after. So it's really about a battle for someone I can stomach versus someone I wholeheartedly cannot. That's what the presidential election means to me. That's why I was so excited to vote this year's election.
Definitely. And one final question: what are the top kind of 2 or 3 issues that for you are on the ballot, and what are you kind of considering going into this election season?
Yeah, I mean, climate is huge, and we only have a finite number of years to turn this around, and Joe Biden is the only candidate who actually believes that climate change is an existential threat. Talk about just democracy being on the ballot and Joe Biden actually believing in a free press, in free elections, in not having the kind of voter suppression one might see. And I really I harken back to that democracy one, where one of these candidates fundamentally believes in democracy, and I don't think the other one does.
Yeah. And just finally, quickly, who are you watching with tonight? What's kind of your election night setup?
I am sitting in Star Lounge where most of my friends live. I live in Forest, but most of my friends live in Star, and so we're here with a few of them. masked up, of course. We got some pizza, we got some snacks, we got some non-alcoholic beverages, of course. And we are just holed up here waiting, and we're watching MSNBC, and we're on pins and needles. That's what the elections. That's what election 2020 looks like here.
That's great. Well, Keith, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Benji. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thank you. That is Keith Schadenhover, Dukes County Commissioner, as well as a student at Middlebury. Welcome back. We are here in the 11 o'clock hour with a couple of updates. We have just over 3/4 of the vote counted here in Vermont, in Vermont's 250 odd towns. And so we're going to look at that first for governor and lieutenant governor. And then we'll look at some of the national key races in both the presidency as well as the Senate. So let's take a look now at our election night maps for Vermont governor and lieutenant governor. I'm going to share my screen now, and you're going to see that pop up on your screens. Currently, we have let's go to our summary statistics here first. Phil Scott in a huge lead. The race has already been called by AP. 211,000 votes to David Zuckerman's 87,000 votes. If we look at the kind of distribution of towns, it's really, really interesting. That small kind of pink sliver on the map on the top left is the city of Burlington, where Dave Zuckerman carried the vote. And he carried a couple of other towns throughout the state, but mostly it's dominated by Phil Scott. There are obviously a lot of other third-party candidates, but none of those candidates could secure a majority. So this is kind of our electoral map that we're looking at tonight. In terms of the lieutenant governor statistics so far, no race has been called yet per any official authority. But as of the time that we went on the air this evening, Molly Gray currently in the lead, 159,000 votes to Scott Mills, 132,000. Let's look at the electoral map because it's actually really, really interesting. I know we've been talking a little bit over the past couple hours about how kind of tight this race is and some of the different dynamics. As you can see, Molly Gray taking a lot of Chittenden County up on the top left of your screen, as well as some of Vermont southern counties, but Scott Mills holding out in some of the northern parts of the state, which tend to be more Republican. Vermont is a really, really interesting state politically because we elect governor and lieutenant governor in all statewide positions, for that matter, every 2 years, as well as we do not have any kind of specified primary system for the party system for the general election. So it is not uncommon to see people vote for a Republican governor, such as Phil Scott, and a Democratic lieutenant governor, which is in this case Molly Gray, or kind of vice versa. So it's interesting to have that split ticket set up. And I'm sure when we get to the end of the night and we have more votes, and we'll be able to kind of compare some of the towns and kind of see their comparisons along the ticket. So that's what we have for the statewide races, and we'll be calling other state and countywide races within the night as the night goes on. Dave Silberman has been elected to High Bailiff of Addison County. That's one race we can call now, with 17 of the 23 towns in the county reporting. Now let's take a little bit of a look of the national picture. I'm going to share my screen here to the New York Times' map, and you can see some of our electoral votes here. New York Times currently having Joe Biden in 209, to Donald Trump 118, 211 remaining electoral votes to count. John King did say a little while ago on CNN that the window of opportunity for Biden and this kind of menu of options is narrowing. And so we're kind of looking at some key races, and I'll go through them briefly here. Without Pennsylvania and Ohio, Biden can still be victorious in the presidency if he wins Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Virginia. Virginia now being called here on the New York Times for Joe Biden with 61% of the votes reported. That's kind of leaning Democratic. We're looking at Wisconsin as well. Trump up in Wisconsin. In Michigan, Trump up in Michigan so far, but officials have said that full unofficial results could take until November 6th, depending on the mail-in ballots. Looking at Arizona here, a key state, Biden up by about 8 points here in Arizona with 75% of the vote in. Let's look at some of our key race alerts here for the Senate. 2 key races have been called, and flips of parties. In Alabama, Tommy Tuberville won the race against Doug Jones with 69% of the votes reported. That race has been called in Colorado. Former Governor John Hickenlooper defeated Cory Gardner with 85% of the votes reported, 54% for Hickenlooper. So those are two key races. We're looking at other races around the state, especially the Senate race in Maine with only 21% of votes reported. And some of these races that you can see around here are Senate races where the party remained the same and was not flipped. So those are some of the key races that we are looking at tonight. We'll have more updates in the 12 o'clock hour. We'll be going live, and I will send out a new link to that, looking more at the Vermont statewide races. Hopefully we'll get a lot of results in. The Secretary of State did say around midnight we could get most of the towns in, so we'll be having those. And then we'll look at an updated version of the country's electoral maps for the presidential race as well as the Senate race. And we'll look at some other things as well. So thank you all so much for joining. Follow me on Twitter at BH Renton, and you can see live updates as well as a link to the next live stream, which will happen around 12 o'clock. Thank you so much, and I hope your election night is going well.